Hello, my name's Jack Klugh, and we're here today to talk about what forgiveness is and what it is not. The reason why this topic's important to me is I understand personally what it's like to hold on to something and how it tripped me up for many, many years. The whole idea of forgiveness, I believe, is a plan that God gave us. The golden rule says, do unto others as you would have others do unto you. So in the same way God has forgiven me, I want to be able to forgive other people. And this isn't easy. If it was so easy, we wouldn't have all the books written on forgiveness that there are that you'll find at the bookstore, or all the articles and sermons that have been preached about this. So I want to talk about what forgiveness is and what it is not. And we'll just play with this for a little bit. I know for me, many, many years ago, over 40 years ago, I ran into a situation that changed my life that I did not expect. And it severely changed the way I viewed the world afterwards. And for years, I was angry about it. And even as a minister, I struggled with this idea of forgiveness versus unforgiveness over some things that I witnessed and some things that have happened. And I got to tell you, there is a freedom with forgiving. And so I want to go over that with you today. Maybe there's somebody that would be watching this that you find yourself stuck in a situation that you cannot move from. Maybe this topic today will be helpful and you'll find some benefit for it. So I want to talk about first what forgiveness is not. Forgiveness is not reconciliation. Reconciliation implies to having a restored friendship to the way it once was. Now, sometimes you can forgive somebody and it's, restored. For instance, a husband and wife forgiving one another, a brother and a sister forgiving one another. But there are occasions in life that you might forgive somebody, but you're not interested in the same kind of a relationship that it once was. Maybe an example could be somebody, you're a victim of a crime, and you can forgive the person who violated you or robbed you or whatever, but that doesn't mean you want to see them on the street again. Another thing about forgiveness is that many people think is if forgiveness means forgetting, which I think is flawed thinking, because God's created the mind, the brain, with the capacity to remember. We can remember things all the way back to 2, 3, 4 years old in some cases. And so it's just because I can remember something does not mean that I'm harboring unforgiveness. It simply means that I remember. But what we're going to learn with the art of forgiveness is even though I remember, the sting, the pain that memory used to have on me, the control that it used to have on me can be gone. And I've experienced that personally. And that is such a big deal to me, which makes this important today. So you can't forgive something or someone if you don't know it happened. So I just want us to understand, I'm dealing with forgiveness because I do remember. But just because I might remember after I forgive doesn't mean I haven't forgiven. We'll talk more about that maybe on another video. Forgiveness is not overlooking. Overlooking implies that you're treating something as trivial or you're failing to notice an important detail. And so no, we're not saying that at all. We're not saying at all that forgiveness is overlooking. We're saying in plain view of all the facts and all the data, all the evidence, we're looking right at it and still coming to a point where we say we will forgive. So we're not forgiving because it's not a big deal. Have you ever had somebody in your life says, oh, just get over it? Maybe that person that's saying that has no idea how much pain and sorrow you've experienced as a result of that occasion. I understand what that's like. And so maybe you want to reach out to me, send me an email or contact me through compasscourses.net and we can talk about that further. The other thing, forgiveness is not absolution, meaning that someone is completely resolved of their responsibility. No, in fact, I can forgive somebody and yet hold them completely responsible for what they've done. Maybe somebody back, I think it was back in the 80s or early 90s, Bernie Madoff on Wall Street had one of the largest, if not the largest, Ponzi scheme in Wall Street. And he's in prison today, I believe. And someone could forgive him, but still expect him to go to jail and do his time. And so forgiveness doesn't mean that you won't face, or just because I forgive somebody doesn't mean that they won't face some kind of problem or some kind of penalty. And forgiveness is not a one-time thing. So an essential element of forgiveness is, does the wrongdoer know they've offended somebody, or me or you, and now they owe a penalty? But that's not always possible, because I know many veterans and I know many people that I've ministered to over the years that they're angry and they're stuck over something, or people that are no longer living, or they don't even know where they are anymore. So what is forgiveness? Forgiveness is to release from a debt or to pardon someone. So imagine yourself standing before the judge and he finds you guilty because you are. I know one day I was driving down the road and I got a speeding ticket. Why? Because I was speeding. I was violating the law. So you find yourself in front of the judge and the judge says guilty. But forgiveness says the judge pardons you. That's a big deal, because that's what happens when somebody comes to Christ or comes to God and says, God, will you forgive me of my sins, and this kind of thing, that God forgives them of their sins. Forgiveness is relinquishing the right to retaliate. Now think about that. You're relinquishing, you're giving complete, if it was the keys, I don't have my keys with me, but giving the keys to the door that's got that person locked up in my mind, and I give the keys away. I relinquish, I give it up, and I don't get those keys back. That's the idea about relinquishing or retaliation, or giving up the right to get even. Forgiveness is granting release from a payment. So yes, you owe me, but because what you've done is so grievous, it's so bad, there's no amount of money, there's no amount of work, there's no amount of time that could pay me to justify for what's in exchange for what's happened. So I choose to forgive. And I let go. Forgiveness is a form of self-sacrifice where we're completely canceling out what I believe somebody owes me. Maybe you know somebody right now, there's an experience that's rolling around in your head, and you're remembering something. You feel like these people owe you, and you're stuck, and it creates all kind of pain. I was taught many years ago that when I'm harboring unforgiveness, it's like I'm sitting on the outside of the jail cell, but I'm watching the prisoner that I've put there through unforgiveness in the jail cell. And I can't leave, or I won't leave, because I'm not going to let there be a chance that he or she will get out. All that energy and all that time that we spent. I remember a minister that hurt me deeply one day, and 7 years later I was still thinking about it. And I'm a mature Christian man, I thought, and here I find myself years later still stuck in the mud, stuck in unforgiveness. And when I came to understand what I was doing, I needed to forgive so that I could be free. And so I wrote that person a letter, and I found the freedom that I needed through forgiving them. They no longer owed me anything. There's a lot of details in that story I'm not telling. I'm just letting you know that I understand what it's like to have a hitch in my giddy up when it comes to forgiveness. And the other thing I want you to know, forgiveness is a choice. So it's not a one-time thing, and it is a choice. So sometimes people will say, well, I'll forgive when I feel like I'm ready. And that day may never come. 30, 40 years could go by. Do you know somebody that's experiencing unforgiveness, and they're talking about a story that's decades old? That might be an evidence that they're stuck where they're at. And so why forgive? One reason to forgive is because I don't want to be stuck anymore. I don't want to be experiencing this any more than I have to. And so I want to forgive so that I can be free. I need help. And the help that I get from God is help through forgiveness and granting a pardon. So why forgive? So that I can be set free, so that I'm no longer stuck. By giving the keys to God through prayer forgiveness, I let him worry about the future of that situation and the details in that person's life. I hear many times people talk about forgiving self. My take on that is just a little bit different, and to me it's an important detail, at least for me. think about this for a moment, is that if I could forgive myself, in other words, if I could take myself off the hook, I would have done it a long time ago. But I couldn't. So to me, forgiving self, a better way to say that is I'm appropriating the forgiveness that God has provided through Jesus Christ. So in the same way Jesus forgave me of my sins, I can forgive someone else of what they've done to me and leave the judgments to God. And whatever comes next in their life, that's God's business. That's my business. And like I said, I completely let it go. So I want you to think of something. Is there somebody in your life or a situation in your life that when you think about it, it burns in your stomach? That may be the evidence that you haven't forgiven somebody. I want you to consider that. If you would like to know more about forgiveness and maybe about an exercise that I have that might help you move the needle a little bit closer from unforgiveness to forgiveness, contact me at compasscourses.net. If you like this video, if you found it helpful, even in a small way, if you would, please check like and consider subscribing to my channel. I'm new at this, and I'm interested in helping people through practical life topics that we all deal with every day, but giving a pastoral perspective on it as well. So as we navigate life together, God bless you until we meet again. Thank you.